Welcome to the Just Womanist series. My name is Melanie C. Jones, and I teach theology and ethics here at Union Presbyterian Seminary in Richmond, Virginia, as well as direct the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womanist Leadership. Today, I have invited Dr. LaKisha Lockhart to serve as our guest. LaKisha Lockhart is a playful womanist scholar activist. She is an assistant professor of practical theology at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University. This July, Dr. Lockhart will join Chicago Theological Seminary as assistant professor of practical theology. This Southern lady hails from Columbus, Georgia, by way of Waynesville, Missouri. She received her BA in philosophy and religion from Claflin University, her MDiv with a concentration in pastoral care and counseling from Wesley Theological Seminary, and an MA in ethics and society from Vanderbilt University. She earned a Doctor of Philosophy from Boston College in theology and education. She believes in the power of play, movement, aesthetics, and creative arts in life and in theology. She actively advocates for the usage of the body as a locus for doing theology through engaged and embodied pedagogical practice. Welcome, Dr. Lockhart.
Hi, Reverend Melanie. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here. So I want to talk a little bit about your journey to becoming a practical theologian, and tell me a little bit about your journey to the academy.
Oh goodness, it's been a windy one. Well, I kind of went through school, wasn't sure what it was going to be. Kind of an undergrad. I just knew I wanted to help people. Wasn't sure what that looked like. Maybe ministry, maybe not. But I had amazing people in my life in undergrad. Amenti Sujai, Daniel Hembry, Ron Neal were all of these people that were basically just sewing into my life, just helping me think about questions that I had that were bigger than what I thought they were, and let me know that it was okay to question God and that it was okay to wrestle with them, and had me reading Womanist theology for the first time, had me reading people that looked like me and shared my experience. And so then my questions carried on and went to seminary, still wasn't sure what I would do with it, but it went, and my questions just got bigger. And I wanted to know, well, how do people teach this? How do we teach across difference? Because I would go to churches and they would be homophobic, or I would go to places and it just felt like that's not the love of God that I know. So how are people teaching this? How are they preaching this? My questions grew, and I realized that I need to be teaching those who teach. So the Lord kept opening doors, I kept stepping through, and hence I ended up with a PhD in theology and education, so I can teach people how to teach and preach to other people about the love of God. So yeah, a little bit of a windy road, but lots of questions, amazing people in my life to help lead and guide, but that's my windy road.
So when did you first hear the term womanist?
It was an undergrad at Claflin University. Amenti Sujai, I was in her class, and she had us reading people like Intisaki Shange and Patricia Hill Collins and Alice Walker, and we were introduced, in the book of Womanist, and I was like, oh, there's a word, and it speaks to me, it speaks to my soul and my heart, and from there it's just been an amazing journey ever since.
Yeah. So a few years ago, I remember that the Millennial Womanism Project recognized you as a Millennial Womanist to watch.
I was.
And so I want to know, what does it mean to be a Black millennial woman or a millennial womanist in practical theology, given the sense that you had 4 mothers in theological education that were Black women, but also not a lot of Black women still being in practical theology, and particularly in theological education in your particular discipline. So just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. So as you mentioned, just so many Black women that came before me and were able to have these incredible journeys. And I love the term millennial womanist because I love that it speaks to where we are now and where I find myself, right? I find myself using technology. I find myself thinking about, hey, how can I make this relevant and present and current? And not that those before me didn't, but I think it was people are people of their time. They're products of what was needed then, right? So we're able to take all of that and bring it to now. And for me, what it means to be a millennial womanist is to realize that the African American woman experience still matters. The story can still be told through various narratives, and for me, it's through play and art and creativity, and I believe it makes space for that. And I'm just riffing off of women that have come before me. It's just that they've given me the space to be able to say my voice and be very unapologetic about it. Kind of coming up, play and creativity were not seen as me being serious in the academy, right? I was told I would have to work 3 times as hard, which I did. I often had many white males try to put me down in the process or say that it's not this, it's not that, but having these great foremothers that made space and carved out space for me to say this is what womanism can look like. It can take this many shapes, but it's about remembering about the love and care of everyone, of our community, of loving who you are regardless. And this is the being that God has created me to be. The way I come to know and be is through play and creativity. And they taught me how to embrace it, and now I am. And I believe it's because of them that I can, and I'm going to do it unapologetically. In the place that I'm living, which means I'm going to use social media, which means I'm going to be playful. I'm going to wear jeans and a blazer. I'm going to be able to kind of be who I am and use myself, my body, my hair, and all of that as parts of how I express myself because of those that came before me. And so for me, it means it's okay to be a little radical, and that's okay.
I am fascinated by, you've used it already, the term womanist play, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for me, womanist play, of course, it comes from me remembering those moments when I was a little black girl in the world playing double dutch, right? Finding my agency and my voice in spaces of freedom and liberation when I didn't have them in other places. You know, I didn't have it at school. I didn't have it in places where my voice was often pushed down or just told to be quiet, which, let's be honest, was also sometimes the church, right, that I found myself in. But it was those spaces that my aunts and my moms carved for me outside on the porch and the patio where we play hide and seek and double dutch, and I was able to make decisions. I was able to say, no, that's not what I want, or yes, it is. I can decide when I want to jump in and when I don't. I can think about who's turning my ropes and who's not, and I didn't have that agency. And for me, that is a very womanist practice. It's a very practice that cares about the flourishing. It cares about loving and knowing and dancing and moving and being okay with that. And for me, that just feels very womanist, and it's womanist play. And I believe that it has this power of helping us teach and learn and move across difference. So I bring these practices into my classrooms. I bring them when I talk. I bring them everywhere I go because I believe they have that transformative power to teach and learn across difference, because that's what womanism is about. It's about reaching across borders, reaching across boundaries. We start with the Black woman's experience, but we reach everybody because we're about everybody coming and getting free together. And so that's the beauty of what I believe play allows us to do. Is we don't see, not that we don't see, but we don't have to bring all of this extra, but we come in and say, we're going to see you regardless with everything you bring in, all your beautiful colors and shapes and everything, and we're still going to play together. And it's a very womanist thing for me.
So I am thinking about Alice Walker's definition, and when I read Alice Walker's definition, I'm thinking about opposite of girlish. Womanist is opposite of girlish, serious, grown up, doing grown up things, which is also somewhat limited a sense of womanist identity being informed by play and being open to play. So I'm just curious how you navigated the tension in that definition, because when I think about you acting womanish as a kind of Black Southern idiomatic expression, I'm thinking about the relationship between Black women and girls, but I'm also thinking about ways in which play is reduced in that sense as well.
Yeah, and I love to say, like, I'm serious about my play, right? And so for me, play, because I mean, that's exactly what often happens. You know, we're supposed to be serious, we have to be this. But for me, I think that also makes space to be playful in that seriousness, because it's also about being bold and being audacious in that same phrase. It's about daring to do something different. And for me, I believe that's also what play brings. So yeah, you can be serious, but play doesn't have to always just be this frivolous thing. For me, I think play often happens on purpose. And it's this beautiful thing that play isn't just the double dutch. It's also the cooking, the braiding the hair, the sitting at the table and sharing stories, the oral traditions, right? For me, it's these aesthetic practices that are also cultural expressions of our very epistemology and ontology, how we know and how we have our very being, right? How we make meaning in the world. For me, is playful, right? So we're cooking and we're dancing and we're singing and we're loving ourselves and loving on each other. And for me, I find that to be very playful. So yeah, it can also be serious. It can be joyful. It can be sad, because I believe we also lament and play it too. So I believe that play can encompass any of those emotions that we have and make space for it. So I don't feel like it pushes against it. I think it's just another avenue that we can use to be playful. Yeah, we can be playful and also be serious. And we can be playful and also still love dancing and the moon and love ourselves and cooking and the flourishing of everyone. So I just think play makes space for fluidity.
I know that you have done a lot of work in theological aesthetics. And talk to me a little bit about that discourse in terms of where you see yourself, when and where you enter.
That's a great question. Thank you. So, so again, because play is so broad, I often do a lot of work around creativity and theological aesthetics and what it means to think about God and creativity and the arts. And I guess I would kind of find myself as a Black woman in this space, just at a place where we need to be able to recapture that. I feel like some of it, especially for theological education, I feel like we've come so very Eurocentric and very mind over everything else. And I believe that to do this work is an embodied experience. To do this work, I mean, especially as a person of color, I can't ever not be part, my body is not ever not part of the conversation, as some others might not have to worry about that. But it's anytime we're having that conversation, our body has to be a part of it. And so for me, it's even just from the aesthetic of our body, and that's what's created out of it, what's created with our hands and our minds, whether it's art or dance or singing or movement. That all is part of what it means to do theological education. And it's like, how do we make sure we make space for our students in the classroom? Because they're not just bringing their minds, they're bringing their entire bodies. So for me, as a practical theologian, as a theological educator, how do I make sure that everything that you're doing is practical and we're using the bodies and we're bringing all that in? You know, we have these creative means when you go home, when you're with your family, right? You're seeing colors, from what you wear to what you do. But why must that stop when we hit the classroom? Why does that stop when we hit the church doors? It shouldn't. Everything we do teaches, from the stained glass to what we look like, what we have in the sanctuary, what's around. And we just need to make sure we're taking that into consideration and seeing how it teaches and how we find God in those spaces, and make space for people to find God and freedom in themselves and see themselves reflected back in multiple mediums, not just one way, because we don't all learn multiple intelligences. We don't all learn one way. Yeah. We don't communicate one way. How do we make more space? And I believe play and aesthetics and creativity makes more space for everyone at the table.
Yeah.
Well, which I don't like the table. I just rather toss the table over. But it makes more space for people.
Yeah. So what do you see as your next work, your next thing? What's the next thing for you?
So one of the things that I'm doing next that I just started is consulting. So because I've gotten such great feedback around all the things that I do around play and realizing it is a unique gift that I've been able to share, is I'm consulting with nonprofits, religious organizations, some corporate organizations, because play, it does different things to our brain. Our brain synapses move differently when we move, when we play, so we're able to be more productive, actually, and more effective, and interact with people on different levels. So whether it's religious or not, play does things differently. And so I've been leading these workshops and facilitations already, but now I'm just kind of making it official with my LLC and doing more work. And so I'll be traveling and doing more work with that and helping other people understand the transformative power of play. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also in the process of trying to turn this into a book, because I've heard so many people say, well, how do we know? How can we do this? So my goal is to hopefully turn this into some writing, turn this into a book. I'm working on it with hopefully some modules that maybe connect to my site so they can actually see the play happening. Because I know sometimes play can be intimidating for folks, and I don't know where to jump in or what to say or what to ask. But maybe if they see it, they can feel it. Because that's also, play has to be experienced. It's a lived experience. And so I want to invite folks to that. So that, I'm also going to be going to Chicago soon. So lots of new things happening. I'm excited. So those are a lot of things that I'm up to most recently.
That's wonderful. So we ask everyone who comes here, what does it mean from your experience to do the work your soul must have?
I love that question. Oh, Katie, Geneva Cannon. It means always being authentic to my call. It means I know that God didn't just call me as a Black millennial woman, God also called me as a playful, creative, imaginative, little different, kind of person, and that I have to walk in that. So when I teach, when I preach, when I'm doing workshops, I always have to be authentic to my call, which means I'm going to be playful, I'm going to be funny, I'm going to be, moving around because I'm a mover. I believe in body. I'm going to move. I might wear jeans and a blazer because I don't like to be stuffy. I like to be free to move, and hopefully that freedom will help someone else be free. And so for me, to do the work that my soul must have is just living into the fullness of my call of being playful and not letting other people squelch that play because they did in the past, but to continue to say, no, I'm going to live in it because so many came before me that couldn't, and I'm going to do it, and in the process, help other people get free.
Thank you so much for being with us, for taking time out to be with this community and to share your work and your wisdom and your wit and all of that. Tell folks where they can find you at.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me. I'm so glad. It's been an honor. I'm so grateful. So they can find me I'm on Twitter at LaKisha_RL. I'm not as active as I should be, but I'm on there. I'm also on LinkedIn, on the Facebook, just Dr. LaKisha Lockhart, and also my consulting site, which is LaKishaRLockhart.com. So those are the places you can find me if you so want to do that.
Wonderful. And you can find the Center for Womanist Leadership at www.centerforwomanistleadership.org, as well as you can find us on Facebook at Center for Womanist Leadership and on Twitter at Just Womanist, to stay tuned to some of the updates and more videos that are to come. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.